Quincas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Welcome to the much anticipated build and calibration video for Steve's MS22 filter from Threetom Modular. This is a dual MS20 style filter with a lot of features and amazing flexibility, especially considering it's only 4 HP. You get individual controls over the frequencies of both filters and a switch to link them for bandpass filtering. It has manual and voltage control over resonance and gain, and the gain can act as a VCA as well as input distortion control, and it affects the sound in interesting and unique ways. There are two CV inputs which are assignable to parameters via the modulation matrix, which is made up of toggle switches. Truly a wonderful little filter, both in sound and features. It's very prone to happy accidents, and can even be used as a killer sound source for percussion and the like when you let it self-oscillate. The resonance goes way beyond the original MS20 filter. The kit comes with all of the SMD components pre-soldered, so you only need to worry about the headers and the panel components. It is a 4-tier PCB sandwich though, so pay close attention so everything lines up perfectly. In case you're wondering, I was able to fit this module in a skinny Bifaco jump skiff, so don't worry too much about the depth, it's a tight sandwich. In the kit comes a handy fold-out sheet with dedicated spots for every component to help you organize the bench before building and make sure nothing is missing. What a nice touch. There's also an illustrated and comprehensive build guide in the Threetom website. Make sure to follow it closely. I separated my PCBs right away, but you can actually keep them together for the first part of the build, which is just installing the headers. Start with the female headers. Make sure to place them on the correct side of each board. Also make sure they are straight and parallel, or you will have a slanted sandwich. Now the male headers. To make sure they are straight, solder just one pin and straighten the header with your fingers while reflowing the solder. If you haven't already, now's the time to separate the boards. Use a sharp cutter and finish the job with a file. Now, there are two little cheesehead screws that you need to actually solder onto the control PCB, aka board A. These will start the stack of spacers and nuts that keep the structure solid. I found the best way was to tin the pads first, add the screws, and reflow the solder. This takes a bit of time and heat due to the mass of the screws. Take your time. Make sure each screw is perfectly perpendicular before moving on. Now you can place but not solder all of the panel components. Note that one of the potentiometers is not like the others. The gain pot is logarithmic, or audio taper, so it's labeled A50K. All the others are linear pots labeled B50K. Slip a washer onto each pot shaft. Slip on the panel and tighten the nuts to keep it together. Use proper tools to tighten the nuts. Absolutely do not use a screwdriver on the jack nuts like you see me doing here. That's a recipe for a scratched panel. I just got lucky this time. Go ahead and solder on all of the pots, jacks, and switches. Now tighten two nuts onto the screws you soldered previously. Then screw on a pair of spacers. Moving on to board B, if you haven't already, solder on the power header. Now place but do not solder the LEDs, making sure they are correctly oriented. The long legs go into the square hose. Now attach board A to board B. Tighten the washers on the spacers and mount the LEDs through their respective panel hose, flush to the panel. Then solder them up. While I was soldering, I noticed a few bridges on the header and fixed them. A good overall visual inspection of the soldering on the headers is a good idea before proceeding. Now you can finish assembling the PCB sandwich, adding a nut before each spacer. You may notice I forgot the nut on the first one, which made me have to go back and reassemble correctly. Now just add the aluminum knobs to the pots. Check the power header for shorts and plug it in to test and calibrate. Good job. Now let's have a look at the calibration procedure. Okay, so let's do this together. We're going to calibrate the MS22. As you can see here, there are 4 tiny little trim pots. I actually had trouble finding a small enough screwdriver for it, but I did. I found this one's kind of busted, but it does still work. Okay, and the first thing I did was physically connect the module to my audio interface, because we're going to use a digital method of calibration. We're going to use our computer. Okay, basically you see this blue cable here is connected to the input of the module, so that's coming from the computer, and it's going to bring noise or oscillations depending on what part of the calibration procedure we're on. And then the pink cable here is going back into the computer. The way that I'm doing this, let me quickly show you. I've got here my 2 draw analog modules that I use as I/O to and from the computer, right? And as you can see, RX2 is receiving audio from track 3 of my computer, of my audio interface, and sending it via the blue cable to the MS22. Right, and via the pink cable, the output of the MS22 is going into the left input of the TX2 module, which is connected to input 3 of my audio interface via this XLR balanced cable over here. You could probably get away without having to use input and output modules like that. I have them, so it was handy, but you can probably just plug them straight into the computer and you'd be fine if you just set the levels correctly. Okay. Let's have a look at the instructions. So basically you need a couple of things before we get started. One of them is a DAW. Tom uses Ableton. I don't use Ableton, I use Reaper. And Reaper has an advantage too, which is that it's free to try without any snags. So it's a fully functional program that you can just download and use and decide if you want to buy it or not. And if you decide to buy it, it's only $60. It's really good. Just go to Reaper.fm and you can choose which version you want to use. There are Mac OS versions for pretty much any recent Mac OS, as well as Windows and even Linux. And it's a really lightweight download and it's a great program. So if you don't have a DAW, I do recommend this one. They don't sponsor me, but I'm a fan. Okay, so once you have a DAW, you also need some free plugins from Melda Productions. You see here on the instructions, number 1B, add the free M Oscillator and M Noise Generator plugins from Melda Productions. So if you just go to Melda Productions page, just a Google search away, you can choose bundles up here. All the way to the bottom, there's a free bundle, M Free FX bundle. It has 37 plugins and they're all really useful. So just download the whole thing. It's just going to be nice to have. There's wave folders in there, wave shapers and things like that. You can always selectively install only the ones you need for this calibration if you don't want any of the other ones. Download this, follow the instructions, install it, and now you have your DAW and you have a bundle of useful plugins, including the ones that you will need to do this calibration. So now you're going to add 2 audio tracks. Here in Reaper, to add a track, you just double click in this dark gray area over here. See, if I double click on it, it opens up as many tracks as I like. I can just delete them by clicking and hitting delete too. I've already done this. Actually, this is my session for my whole demo. So as you can see, there's my VO track here. It's recording my voice right now as I speak. And it's also recording the audio back from my MS22 module, which is muted right now. If I unmute it, you'll hear that noise, right? The noise is being generated down here in this noise track. Okay, let's make these a little bigger so I can really visualize them. And basically here on this effects tab is your list of plugins for that track. And I've added both the M oscillator and the M noise generator, and I've unchecked the box here for the oscillator because we want to start using just the noise generator. And that noise is routed here, the routing tab in the track. What I did is I disabled it from master send, see? So it's not going to my headphones, not going to the master. And I've added a new hardware output. In the bottom here, you have this option to add a hardware output. And I've added outputs 3 and 4. I chose a stereo pair. I didn't need to, it could have been just output 3 because this is obviously mono. So it doesn't really matter. In fact, I could delete this and just add output 3 here and it'll work the same way. If I unmute here, we'll hear that noise as it's going through the MS22 module. And you can tell because when you turn the knob here on the filter, you can hear how that affects the sound, right? Well, we're going to leave it all the way open right now, and we'll mute it so it's not bothering us. The MS22 channel, if you click here on the VU meter for the track, it gives your input sources, right? And as you can see, I've chosen input 3 of my Focusrite interface where the module is plugged into. Now open up the M Analyzer, go into the settings and configure as shown in the image below. And then when you have a look at the spectrograph, it should show a flat profile as expected from white noise. So let's go and do that. Don't be confused, there are 2 settings pages. This was a little confusing for me. There's a settings tab up here and there's a settings tab right here in the little screen. That's the one you want. You want this one right here. Okay, now over here in slope it says it's default plus 3 dB. We want that to be 0. So if you double click on it, you can choose 0 and just say OK. And now indeed we can see a nearly flat profile up here. Over here at around 175 Hertz, it starts to slope down a little bit, but I think that's as flat as we're gonna get it. Let's see what other settings we need as well. So I'm gonna click on settings here and hide the main Reaper. There you go, hide the main Reaper window. So what else do we need here? Opacity up 79. Looks like we got it. Let's turn off that normalize option. Yep, that looks about right. So let's close this now. Oh, now it's super low. Now we can probably bring our noise level up a bit, right? So that it shows up more or less in the middle there. Just turning physical knobs right now here. Okay. So let's see what else is there to do. Make sure to set the knobs on the module to the positions shown. We're now ready to start calibration. Okay, so the knob positions, let me just make sure they're the same as shown. So yeah, first one all the way clockwise, second one all the way counterclockwise, resonance a little under halfway, gain in the middle, and then both the attenuators for the CV inputs all the way down. And it looks like all of the switches are in their center positions. All correct. So let's leave the module in its place. I'm not getting the resonant peak yet, so I probably need to bring my resonance higher a little bit. There you go. And now we'll bring the high pass. Yeah, we can see twin peaks there, just like the drawing. This seems to be good right there. Let's keep going. If the filter range is small, we need to add gain. If it's large, we need less gain so that we match the middle over here. So this is the diagram that shows what we want. The ones on the top of the picture are for the high pass, and the ones on the bottom are for low pass. The ones to the left are gain, and the ones to the right are offset. So that's very logical. Cool. course, calibration. Low pass at maximum setting and high pass at minimum setting. That's looking about right. Now low frequency at minimum setting and high frequency at minimum setting as well. Okay. Oh, so that's looking quite different. So we want to maybe offset it. Okay, offset the low pass so it's a little bit higher. And maybe reduce the gain as well, right? Because we want it to look like this, not like this. It's going too low. So I'm gonna leave it all the way low, and I'm gonna now turn the low pass offset until I get that effect. So let's zoom in a bit so you can see these well. So this is the low pass offset one right here. Let me try to grab that screw. Oh, here it is. All right. And there it is. That's looking more like how we wanted it, right? If I turn it all the way up, it looks like the drawing, and all the way down, it also looks like the drawing. Maybe I went a little bit overboard. Maybe we want that a little bit lower. Low frequency at maximum setting, right? So we'll put low frequency at maximum setting and high pass at maximum setting. And it should look like that slope right there. And it kinda is, huh? Let's add a little bit more range to this. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. Now if you have the high pass frequency lower than the... That's what we see. Let's add a little feedback to get those peaks. And yeah, that's looking quite a bit like the drawing. Now let's have a look at the finishing touches. Listen to the output of the filter and double check that the small dead zones of inaudible changes are present in the range of the knobs. On this spot looks good. Listen to the output of the filter and double check if the low pass fully closes. Yep. Disable the noise generator and enable the oscillator and configure it as shown for the saw wave pitched at C1. Okay, so we've got this. Let's go to the Reaper over here and we'll choose that noise track over here, and now we're going to activate the oscillator and deactivate the noise, and we'll choose the oscillator, double click on it so we can put it over here and observe it. Okay, now we'll hide the Reaper main window again, and now we'll set this the way we're looking over here. So we want the saw wave shape, this G right here, right? G below C3, so G2. This looks about right. Check if the low pass attenuates at least minus 40 dB of fundamental first harmonic when fully closed. So the fundamental being this one right here. So when it's fully closed, it needs to go to about minus 80. No, it's going to minus 50, which is not quite enough. So minus 30. To minus, we want it a little bit more. So I'm offsetting this so that it cuts more. That's good. And look, we're at minus 70 dB with the fundamental there. Yeah, that's about right. It's almost going to 30. So that's almost 40 dB of attenuation, which is what we're aiming for here. There we go. I think we got it. All right, so this has been the calibration procedure for the MS22. That's it for this video. Hope you liked it. Please stay tuned for the next one, which will be a demo of this amazing module in action. See you soon. Stay noisy.